Hello, I'm Michael Whitehouse, the Summit guy and the producer of the Neurodiversity Superpowers Summit. I was also the host of the Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast. I want to share a bit of my story that I think you might find valuable for your experience. Now, I'm not a big fan of sharing my bio and credentials and credibility at the beginning of a talk, so I'm not going to do it. But the story is relevant because you may be some point along this story and it may be instructive to you. So I have ADHD, and growing up, I would often get criticized for not remembering things. If it was important, you'd remember it, right? You know what I'm talking about? How'd you forget to go to the store? How'd you forget you had homework? Finally, in college, someone said, maybe you should get tested for ADHD. I got tested. I had ADHD. I also tested as a genius, by the way. ADHD and genius often go well together. Absent-minded professor kind of thing, I guess. So they gave me medication. I took it for, I think, about a month and a half because it did help me to focus for about 90 minutes to 2 hours, but it made me tired about 4 hours earlier. So I lost a good chunk of my day in exchange for a small burst of productivity. Not a good trade off. Went off the pills, completely unmedicated since then. For the next 20 or so years, I thought of myself as overcoming a disability. I thought of myself as, I've got attention deficit disorder. It's a disability. I am overcoming it. Look at me. I'm overcoming this. But I'll never be as good as neurotypicals. But, maybe I can overcome it a bit. And working harder makes you stronger, right? High altitude training and all. Well, flash forward to 2021, my podcast, The Guy Who Knows a Guy, I was interviewing successful entrepreneurs to learn what the heck they were doing that I wasn't, because they were millionaires and I wasn't, and I wanted to be, or at least I wanted to have the choice to be. And I interviewed a number of them, learned a whole lot of things, one of which was about spirituality and secular spirituality, but that's beyond the scope of this talk. What I learned started with a conversation with a man named Dan Mangena, which I believe is episode number 72 of the Guy Who Knows a Guy podcast. I also put it in the Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast feed replay because I asked him, what makes you awesome? Because how else do you talk to millionaires? You ask them, what makes you awesome? I asked, what makes you awesome? And his answer, after some polite demurring, was, what makes me awesome is Asperger's. Asperger's. That's a disability. That's high functioning autism. That doesn't make you awesome. That's a disability. Well, it turns out it's not. See, what he explained was that his autistic brain is able to see patterns other people don't see. This allowed him to become a millionaire twice in his 20s. Well, you can only become a millionaire if you're not a millionaire. So the downside was he was unable to read people, unable to understand irrational things like regulations, because he didn't realize he had this blind spot. So he made $1 million, lost it. Made millions, lost it. Finally got diagnosed, learned what his kryptonite was and how to avoid it, learned the coping strategies and the, how to read people, how to watch people, how to understand these systems, what to watch for, and who to get support from. And then he became a millionaire and stayed a millionaire. And now he's like single-handedly helping to rebuild economies in West Africa, and he's doing amazing things. And during the course of the interviews, I ran into a couple of other people who had autism or ADHD or something. And eventually, it started to dawn on me that I might not be disabled. I might be superpowered, right? I like the term differently abled because it sounds very trite. But as I got into this, I said, well, I'd probably just be working some boring office job, wasting my life if I didn't have ADHD. ADHD keeps me from doing that. But my failure was I kept trying to find something normal. And in trying to do that, I was trying to be someone other than me. So this, in 2020, I did embrace being me, and that started to work a lot better. But I still hadn't fully embraced the concept of I might not be disabled. Well, after all this, I said, okay, maybe I'm not disabled. Maybe this is a difference, and that would be interesting. So I started the Neurodiversity Superpowers podcast, and I interviewed during the course of this 23, 24, a whole bunch of people with different neurodiversities. These are people with ADHD, autism, dyslexia, aphantasia, chronic suicidal ideation, all kinds of things. And the way I found them was I went to groups of highly successful people I knew told them I'm doing this show on neurodiversity superpowers. And if that's you, if you're successful because of, not in spite of, because of your neurodiversity, I want to talk to you. And the stories blew my mind. I met Paul Daniels, who's a business coach, life coach. He teaches people to be more dyslexic because dyslexia, in addition to the reading challenge, also creates a form of peripheral thinking. So you're not just seeing this solution, you're seeing these solutions, you're seeing these connections, right? ADHD, we have a lower tolerance for BS. We're the ones who are going to speak up in the meeting and be like, what the heck are we doing here? Could we just fix it? We're also the ones who are more likely to quit the job, go start a business, and no one became a millionaire staying at their job, right? So leads us there. Autism, as I mentioned, it's about pattern recognition, not necessarily math. That's the myth, and that's where this superpowers concept can get people in trouble. Well, you're autistic. Why aren't you superpowered at math? Not always math. Sometimes it's connections in finance. Sometimes it's connections in programming, military strategy, anything that's systemic. Autistic people are better at identifying those things, but it's got to be the right thing, and it's at the cost of social interaction skills. So, deployed correctly can be incredibly powerful, but so many people are deployed the wrong way. As I believe was Einstein said, if you judge a fish on his ability to climb a tree, you'll always think he's an idiot. Same thing with neurodiverse folks. We are often judged on the wrong things. We're judged on how do we manage office politics. We're judged on how do we do menial tasks, because you got to do the menial tasks to get up to the serious tasks. Well, if you can't get past the menial ones, you don't get to where your superpowers are. This is what's so exciting here in the 2020s. Entrepreneurship is at scale. Anyone with a computer can start a business and can turn away from that crap and start doing the things that we're meant to do. And this is what I want you to take away from this, from the podcast, from the summit, from everything we're sharing under the Neurodiversity Superpowers banner, is you don't, if you are neurodiverse, you don't have a disability. You have a different neurotype, a different configuration. I always like to think of a Jeep versus a sedan, right? Jeeps are higher center of gravity. They don't turn as well. They're more prone to rolling over. They have worse gas mileage. They're a bit less comfortable. Sedan on the highway next to a Jeep, better in every way. They cost less, better in every way. Until you try to go through 5 inches of snow or off-road or through some mud. The sedan won't make it 10 feet. The Jeep's bouncing along over the rocks in Hillendale. Why? Because that's what it's designed for. The Jeep's superpower is difficult roads and off-roads. You put it on a highway next to a sedan, it looks like a mediocre car. You put it off-road, that's what the superpower is. So we are uniquely suited to do different things. And here's the thing. It is arguable that no one's neurotypical, that everyone has some kind of neurodiversity. We're more extreme. Right? If you're really neurodiverse, it's hard to fit in the lane. It's hard to squeeze into corporate. Some people do. Some people aren't able to. But even for quote unquote neurotypicals, people who are subclinical, you still have your own specialties, your own strengths, your own weaknesses. And neurodiverse folks can blaze the trail of saying, find your strength, find your superpower, lean into that. In fact, I'm reading Brian Tracy's Eat the Frog right now, and it shares a story of a woman who looks at her job and says, what are the 3 things that are making most of the impact from my job? Talking to her boss saying, can I just do this and help me get rid of that? That's basically what we're talking about. Figure out where your strengths are, how to only do those, and how to eliminate or outsource or delegate anything that's not your strengths. Neurodiverse or not, that is how you become successful. The point is, the key thing, the most important thing you must do first is to get the idea that you are broken, to get the idea that you are disabled, to get the idea there's something wrong with you out of your head, and to get into your head that there's something different about you. And different is often better than better. If you'd like to learn more about this, of course, join me at the summit, and go to neurodiversitysuperpowers.me, where you will find all the past episodes of the podcast where I've done all the interviews. But either way, there are so many examples, so many people you can talk to. Key thing is, you're not disabled. You're different. And this isn't like a PC kind of, we're all different and special. No, you're actually different. You're good at different things that other people aren't good at. and that's where fortunes are to be found. So I look forward to seeing you at the summit. If you're watching this before the summit happened, if you're watching this after March 13th, 2023, go to summits.fun to see our other upcoming events. Imagine we're gonna have other neurodiversity events, but we have all kinds of events about bringing out your unique power, because that's what entrepreneurship's about, and that's a lot of what I talk about. I am Michael Whitehouse, the Summit Guy. I run summits that don't suck, and I've got a little bit of ADHD, just like I got a little bit of gray hair. See you soon.